Hi everybody, welcome to the garage. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Peter Clayton, as usual, is behind the camera. What did you think of our new intro?
Me?
Well, everybody. Dominic did the drone flight and Pete did the editing. So we have a new intro to the show, which I think is terrific. No, thank you, Pete. Congratulations. That's great. It's a work of art.
I like it.
Yeah, I've looked at it a dozen times. I think it's great. Anyway, I hope you do, because you are very important. Thank you for joining us in the Court of Public Opinion. It's very cold. Well, I think maybe, what have we got, 3 weeks of winter left, officially. And I'm wearing this, which is beautifully warm. I found this I hope you go to op shops, because I do all the time. Op shops are fantastic. I went into an op shop, and here was this flying jacket. Somebody's put all sorts of badges on it that weren't there on day one. Back in, I suspect, I know Vietnam, because the flying jacket, they would put in the lining of the flying jacket, made of silk, they would print a map of the relevant area where the guys in the aeroplanes were flying. So if you got shot down or you ejected, you'd have your flying jacket on, which is very warm and most important, but you'd rip the lining out, and there would be a map that could get you to the nearest friendly, helpful point. And this still has its silk lining in it, so I know it's genuine. But I love it. I think it's great. And I think it cost me $60, something like that. I mean, but the wonderful, wonderful value of things that you find at op shops. Check out your nearest op shop. Salvation Army, St. Vincent de Paul, there are so many of them. So just, do. And by the way, apart from speaking to you from the garage, as we announced from the dining room table last Friday, live streaming jeremycordeaux.com, we are talking to you from Adelaide, crowned the #1 most beautiful city in the world. Did you catch up with that, Pete?
Yes, and I agree.
Yeah, I would never have said it was the most beautiful city, although I haven't spent a lot of my time travelling, because if you work in radio and television, you don't go away for holidays, because if you do, somebody's going to do your program, he's going to do it really badly, you'll lose your audience, or he'll do it absolutely brilliantly and you'll lose your job. So it pays to stay put. I know that's a self-defensive thing to say, but it's life. And the philosophy has served me reasonably well. Stock market is having I don't know what you'd call it, a conniption, maybe? It's not quite a convulsion, it's a conniption. But we will survive. It's ups and downs. We will survive. Don't panic! The Middle East is boiling, even erupting. In a suburban office work store. You know Officeworks? You know Officeworks. Fantastic West Farmer organization. Big, very successful. Now this particular Officeworks was in Elsternwick. I won't laminate that article for you or help you. It is from a Jewish publication, and the sales assistant said, I support Palestine. Elsternwick is a pretty Jewish area in Melbourne. Now this Jewish gentleman, the customer, was shocked. Don't blame him. Now, this is crap, as we said on Friday. Salespeople don't decide who they serve, who they help. That's ridiculous. I won't serve you, you're fat. I don't like you, you're bald, I'm not going to serve you. Oh, you're black. You're gay. Maybe you're gay. I won't serve you. You can't, that doesn't happen. Now, I'm not aware what has happened to this sales assistant, but something should. Goodness gracious me. We have a special guest, ladies and gentlemen, on the show today. Jimmy Stewart. I'm not kidding. Jimmy Stewart. He was wonderful. I love Jimmy Stewart. And he served with distinction in the Second World War. A great actor. Rear... What was the thing called? Rear Window. Rear Window, yeah, that was it. He was in a lot of westerns. Fantastic actor. He never played anyone but himself. Anyway, he made this wonderful appearance on Johnny Carson's Tonight shows. Towards the end of his life, but he was still a great performer, Jimmy Stewart, and Johnny Carson. And it's all about his dog named Bo. And I thought you might like to see it. Pete, can we stick that in?
We'll put that in right here.
You want to put it in right here?
Put it here, yeah.
All right. Have a look at this. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Jimmy Stewart and the Tonight Show host, Johnny Carson.
I just thought I'd write a poem. Do you want to hear
Please,
it?
oh yes.
You want to hear it? Now this, well,
They could always start the wedding late, I guess.
now the title of it is Bo. That's the name of the dog. He never came to me when I would call unless I had a tennis ball, or he felt like it. But mostly he didn't come at all. When he was young, he never learned to heel or sit or stay. He did things his way. Discipline was not his bag, but when you were with him, things sure didn't drag. He'd dig up a rose bush just to spite me, and when I'd grab him, he'd turn and bite me. He bit lots of folks from day to day. The delivery boy was his favorite prey. The gas man wouldn't read our meter. He said we owned a real man-eater. He set the house on fire, but the story's long to tell. Suffice to say that he survived and the house survived as well. And on evening walks, and Gloria took him, he was always first out the door. The old one and I brought up the rear because our bones were sore. And he'd charge up the street with Mom hanging on. What a beautiful pair they were. And if it was still light and the tourists were out, they created a bit of a stir. But every once in a while he'd stop in his tracks and with a frown on his face look around. It was just to make sure that the old one was there to follow him where he was bound. We're early to bedders in our house. I guess I'm the first to retire. And as I'd leave the room, he'd look at me and get up from his place by the fire. He knew where the tennis balls were upstairs, and I'd give him one for a while, and he'd push it under the bed with his nose, and I'd dig it out with a smile. But before very long, he'd tire the ball, and he'd be asleep in his corner in no time at all. And there were nights when I'd feel him climb upon our bed and lie between us, and I'd pat his head. And there were nights when I'd feel this stare, and I'd wake up and he'd be sitting there, and I'd reach out to stroke his hair, and sometimes I'd feel him sigh, and I think I know the reason why. He'd wake up at night and he would have this fear of the dark, of life, of lots of things. And he'd be glad to have me near. And now he's dead. And there are nights when I think I feel him climb upon her bed and lie between us, and I pat his head. And there are nights when I think I feel that stare, and I reach out my hand to stroke his hair, and he's not there. Oh, how I wish that wasn't so. I'll always love a dog named Bo.
They've appointed, did you like that? I hope you did. They've appointed a former High Court judge to decide whether it is constitutional to ban 14-year-olds from social media. You know, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, whatever they call it. Whatever happened to parenting? Good old-fashioned parenting, for God's sake. Why don't you just stand up there and say, turn that bloody thing off? Parents are supposed to parent. Call the shots. And what a half-hearted, watered-down non-event is this government's ban on gambling advertising on TV. I can imagine the lobbying that must have gone on. After all, we're talking billions and billions of dollars in advertising revenue. So what does the government do? What does the government do? Looks after the gambling industry and, of course, the media, who make squillions out of it. Look at the ban on cigarette advertising, for example. Pure and simple. No ifs, no buts, particularly no buts. And guess what? It worked. Simple, straightforward. Beyond belief. Only 5 out of the 19 targets to close the gap. You know about the gap. 5 out of 19 have been met so far. One of the things to come out of this Gama festival over the weekend, just gone by, I wonder what the taxpayer put into that all up. I wonder. Just like people are being ripped off, disabled people, through the NDIS, and of course the taxpayer along with the disabled, the Aboriginals are being ripped off and exploited by various so-called indigenous agencies. I call them the Aboriginal industry. Far, far removed from the people they're supposed to help. I doubt that they've ever seen an Aboriginal, let alone, a full-blood Aboriginal. We're not talking about the successful Aboriginals. They don't seem to get a mention. I'm talking about the lawyers, the doctors, the teachers, the journalists, the musicians. Sportsmen. God, for heaven's sake, yes. Carpenters, plumbers, builders. Lots and lots of very successful, achieving Aboriginal people. You have to remember that over 60% of the Aboriginal population is employed. It's looking for work or employed. 60%. That's pretty darn good. Some 289,000 people. The gap, the problem they're talking about, mostly concerns the Stone Age tribal Aboriginal people. Hundreds and hundreds of disorganized clans. Very simple, lovely, beautiful people who, like the disabled, are being weaponized, politicized, and exploited by Labor and the left. If this government wants to help Aboriginals, forget the Uluru Statement from the Heart, treaties, the Makarrata. As Warren Mundine has said to me on many occasions, school is the answer. Education is where it must start. That's practical, not political, not controversial. Get rid of the parasites. Get rid of the Aboriginal industry. That soaks up all the money. Just like the NDIS, which employs, let me think, 400,000 people. Close enough to 400,000 people. Before you even get started counting the providers, of whom I think there are more than 130,000, the NDIS now costs the taxpayer more than the aged pension. Do you believe that? The NDIS now costs more than the aged pension. You have the Aboriginal industry, which soaks up $43 billion of the budget. And the people never see the money or the benefit. Like the CFMEU scandal, they will say, I predict, we didn't know that. And because of a lazy, incompetent media, they'll probably get away with it. Not held to account. But let's be honest. We are told that the Aboriginal people, primitive Aboriginal people, lived happy, successful lives for 60,000 years before the arrival of white man. If they could do it then, out in remote Australia, why can't they do it now? They have access to everything that every other Australian has access to. Yeah, there is the tyranny of distance, but don't live there. And if people choose to, for cultural or historic reasons, want to live beyond the black stump, well, they can. God bless them. But don't expect the same facilities that one would find in a modern, sophisticated city. It's that simple. But people are free to choose where they want to live. But just don't send me the bill. Closing the gap. Look, have I got time, Pete? You can only help people who will help themselves. The group we're talking about is only 1% of the Aboriginal population, which is about 3% of the general population. The amount of money that is being thrown at this 1%, like the NDIS, is totally out of all proportion. It boils down to bureaucratic, governmental incompetence and mismanagement. If he's available, I hope he is, on Friday, we'll have Warren Mundine on the show, live streaming, Friday morning, 9 till 12, jeremycordeaux.com, and I'd love to have a conversation with you as well, if you'd be kind enough to ring. And counting our time with Jimmy Stewart, I thought I should get onto the dates. All right, Pete?
Yes.
Get onto the dates. All right. Happy birthday. If you're having a birthday, wedding anniversary, it's the 6th of August. Wow. Oh, here's one. Tim Berners-Lee releases files describing his unique idea for the World Wide Web, WWW. And it debuts as a publicly available service on the internet. And you know, he could have patented that. He could have made billions, but he chose not to. He gave it to the world. What a man. That was 1991. The atomic bomb on this day dropped on the Japanese city of Hiroshima by the USS B-29 superfortress Enola Gay. On this day, I've got the hiccups. Pete, what do you do for hiccups?
Yes, I can cure it every time.
How?
You drink out the top edge of the glass. It works.
Okay. I'll try it. I'll try it. Can you give me something more exciting than water? All right. Okay. I'll come across to your way of thinking. I was just trying to think of the bloke. I never talked to him. He was the captain of the Enola Gay, or the commander of the Enola Gay, the B-29, that dropped the bomb. I remember seeing an interview with somebody, and he said he went out of the Air Force as a brigadier general, and the interviewer said, "Do you feel any guilt about killing so many people?" And he said, no guilt whatsoever. After Pearl Harbor, and the fact is that dropping those bombs saved millions and millions of lives. I think he was probably right. Of course, no one knows. Lucille Ball, American comedian and actress. I love Lucy Mame, born Jamestown, New York, died 1989. She's somebody I wish I'd talked to. She was born in 1911, a year before my mother. 1961, the first case of motion sickness in space was reported. 1961, on this day. First air flight over a major body of water in Australia, funnily enough, by a bloke called Harry Butler. Not that Harry Butler, the original Harry Butler. That was back in 1919 on this day. Cream Puff, the world's oldest pussycat, dies in Texas, aged 38 on this day. Actually, 38 in 3 days. Valet Cream Puff, 2005 on this day. Italian explorer John Cabot returns to Bristol from North America, Newfoundland. First European to do so since the Vikings, 1497, on this very day. Auspicious. Alexander Fleming, Scottish bacteriologist, inventor of penicillin, Nobel Prize winner, but not by himself. You must remember the wonderful Adelaide scientist Howard Florey was in there with him on that momentous task. Anyway, Alexander Fleming, he was born on this day in Scotland, 1881. The Great Bell is cast in the Great Clock of Westminster in London, Big Ben. Big Ben is, of course, the bell, not the clock. That was 1856. Happy birthday to Darrell Summers. The world's, oh God, I feel sorry about this. The world's oldest tree, 1964, not that many years ago, the world's oldest tree, at least 4,862 years old, is accidentally cut down in Nevada in the United States of America. On this day in 1964. Andy Warhol, American pop artist, Campbell's Soups, Marilyn Monroe, all those funny, weird things, died 1987, born this day in 1928. Betty Cuthbert, I'll make this, a couple more. Betty Cuthbert, Australian athlete, 2017, dies of dementia at 79. And Chubby Checker performs his version of Hank Ballard's The Twist on, what show was it? On, The Dick Clark Show, starring starting a worldwide dance craze. The twist. You ever do the twist, Pete?
I'm not a dancer. No.
No. No, I'm not a fighter. I'm a lover. I can't. I got 2 left feet. Can't do it. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here in the Court of Public Opinion in the Garage. We'll be back tomorrow for another posting, and Andy Martin will have this out as a podcast as well, and I hope you might join us on Friday. Live streaming around the dining room table, jeremycordeaux.com. In the meantime, from the Court of Public Opinion, believe in yourself, and goodbye for now.